lot of us, especially when we're just starting out, blame ourselves when new shrimp or fish die, or when they just don't breed. And I get it. You spend time researching, setting up the tank properly, testing the water, doing everything right, and still, things go wrong. But here's the truth. Sometimes, it's not your fault. Sometimes, you just get a bad batch. In this video, we're going to talk about what a bad batch really means, why it happens, and what other factors might be completely out of your control, because this hobby is challenging enough without carrying guilt you don't need. Let's dive right in. A bad batch refers to a group of shrimp or fish that, despite being introduced into a fully cycled, well-established, and well-maintained tank with ideal water parameters, simply fail to thrive. This might look like unusually high mortality shortly after introduction, or ongoing issues like poor health, inactivity, or failure to breed, even when everything in the tank seems perfect. Aquarists use the term to describe situations where losses or problems occur without a clear cause, suggesting the shrimp or fish were already compromised before purchase. This can be due to stress from transport, underlying health or genetic issues, or poor handling earlier in the supply chain. So why do bad batches happen in the first place? Let's break down some of the most common causes. Before your shrimp or fish even enter your tank, they may have already endured significant stress. The journey often includes being netted, starved, bagged, boxed, and shipped, sometimes for days, while being exposed to temperature swings and repeatedly acclimated as they pass between wholesalers and retailers. Each stage, especially sudden changes in water parameters and temperature, places immense strain on their bodies. This cumulative stress can weaken their immune systems, making them far more susceptible to disease and much less likely to recover, even when introduced into a clean, well-maintained tank. The result? Unexplained deaths or failure to thrive, often within days of arrival. On top of that, transport conditions themselves can be harsh. Cramped spaces and high stocking densities lead to a rapid buildup of waste, especially ammonia and nitrite in the shipping water. Ammonia and nitrite are highly toxic, can cause tissue damage and further physiological stress. Even brief exposure can have lingering effects, leaving your shrimp or fish vulnerable and struggling to recover even under ideal conditions. A few months ago, I purchased around 10 panda corridoras that had just been imported by my local fish store and introduced them to my 55-gallon bamboo and vampire shrimp tank, which had been set up since 2023. At first, they seemed to be doing well, but after a few days, I started to notice some changes. A few became less active, stayed by themselves, and stopped eating. Some even began to lose their color. Within the first month, I lost 8 of them, and for the longest time, I blamed myself. I thought I'd done something wrong, and maybe my tank just wasn't right for the species. Eventually, I went back to my local store and explained what happened. They told me it might have been a bad batch. It's highly likely that these fish were starved for a long period of time and bounced around during transport, especially since they'd just been imported. That kind of stress can take a serious toll, even if they looked fine at first. So a bit reluctantly, I decided to try again, this time with 6 bronze corridoras. It's been about 3 months now, and not only are those 6 thriving, but the 2 remaining panda corries are as well. At the wholesaler level, it's standard practice to withhold food from fish and shrimp for several days before shipping. This fasting period helps reduce waste in the shipping bags, which minimizes the buildup of harmful ammonia during transport. While this does help protect water quality in transit, it can leave the animals somewhat weakened by the time they reach your local store. Most healthy shrimp and fish can handle short-term fasting, but when you combine that with handling, transport, and stress, it can take a real toll on their immune systems and overall vitality. So even if they seem active at first, they may already be running on empty. And once they arrive in a new home, some may refuse to eat or decline quickly, especially if the cumulative stress of the journey has pushed them past their limit. I've seen this happen quite a bit with autosinkless catfish, and I've mentioned it in previous videos. These fish are especially vulnerable to starvation during the supply chain process. Most autos are well caught, and after collection, are sent to export warehouses where they're intentionally fasted for several days to reduce waste and ammonia during shipping. Once they reach wholesalers, they're often kept in bare tanks with little to no natural food, and sometimes go weeks without proper supplemental feeding. By the time they arrive at local fish stores, it's common to see autos that are noticeably skinny and already weakened from prolonged malnutrition. This extended lack of food leaves them extremely sensitive, and unless they get access to algae or suitable foods right away, many tend to die shortly after being introduced to a new tank. Before I get into the next common cause, I'd like to talk to you briefly about my premium shrimp food collection, which could also be a great help for your fish. There's Fuse, which is a staple food I use most often. It has a wide range of high-quality ingredients and is rich in protein, algae, and omega-3s. Then there's Buzz, a natural bee pollen I feed once or twice a week. Buzz is high in protein and packed with vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants that help support overall health and well-being. Lastly, there's Snow, also known as snowflakes. It's made from soybean hulls and is a great complementary food I also use once a week. Snow is rich in fiber and contains essential minerals like calcium that shrimp need for their exoskeletons. I've also noticed that my autosynclus catfish enjoy grazing on snow because it encourages biofilm growth, a natural food source they rely on. In a few weeks, my vegetable-based blend called Vita will soon become part of my shrimp and fish's staple diet as well. It's a fine powdered mix made from 6 natural ingredients: carrots, sweet potatoes, kale, spinach, pumpkin, and beetroot. If you're interested in learning or trying any of these foods for your own shrimp or fish, I'll leave a link for you in the description below. Use promo code FOREVER10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. Not all breeders prioritize quality. Some focus solely on quantity, aiming to mass-produce shrimp or fish as quickly as possible. That often means cutting corners, like relying heavily on inbreeding or skipping proper genetic selection. While this can result in large numbers of animals that look healthy at first, the underlying genetic weaknesses can be significant. Shrimp or fish bred this way often have compromised immune systems, making them more vulnerable to disease and stress. They may also suffer from poor fertility, stunted growth, or shorter lifespans compared to well-bred stock. Unfortunately, these issues aren't always obvious right away. These creatures might seem vibrant and active when you first bring them home, but over time, problems start to show, like unexplained deaths, chronic health issues, or a total lack of breeding. It can be incredibly frustrating because everything in your tank seems perfect, but the root cause often goes back to poor breeding practices, not your care or setup. An important issue that often goes unnoticed is skewed sex ratios. Most shrimp and many fish are sold when they're still juveniles, where they're far too young to reliably determine their sex. So when you buy a group hoping to breed them, you might unknowingly end up with all males, all females, or a heavily skewed ratio. This can be especially frustrating if you're eagerly waiting for new additions, only to find that nothing happens. With shrimp, getting the ratio right is key. The ideal balance is usually around 3 females to 1 male. If you end up with the reverse, or a group made entirely of one sex, breeding simply won't happen. Even worse, an imbalanced group can lead to heightened aggression and increased stress, which may result in deaths among females. If you follow Richard from Shrimp Keeping Answers, you might have heard him mention in a few of his videos that he once ended up with a batch of shrimp that were all the same sex. Maybe it was just coincidence, or maybe the store gave him all one sex on purpose, hoping he wouldn't notice and would end up coming back to buy more. To make things trickier, some species of fish, like guppies and other life bearers, are genetically predisposed to produce more of one sex, or their ratios can be influenced by environmental factors like temperature or pH during development. So even if a breeder tries to provide a balanced mix, natural skews can still happen. There's just no guarantee you'll end up with the right ratio. And sometimes, it's not just breeding or environment at play, misidentification can be a factor too. I actually experienced this with one of my scarlet batis. When I bought my second one, the store clerk and I both thought it was a female. But after a couple of weeks, I noticed it started coloring up just like my dominant male, and that's when I realized it was actually a subdominant male. Now, in a nano tank, 2 males can be a real problem due to aggression, but thankfully, there's enough space for them to establish their own territories. So while this could have been considered a bad batch, in my case, it worked out. Sometimes your tank really is perfect, but your shrimp or fish still don't make it. And that can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you've checked and double-checked every aspect of your setup. The reality is, many shrimp and fish come from environments with water parameters vastly different from those in your home aquarium. For example, they may have been caught in rivers or streams, and then held in water with much higher or lower pH, or drastically different levels of hardness and total dissolved solids. Even if they seem to survive in those conditions, the cumulative stress of capture, transport, and acclimation can leave them with very little resilience left. Shrimp are especially sensitive to subtle changes in water chemistry. Even minor shifts in GH, KH, or TDS can cause chronic stress. And that stress isn't always obvious at first. They may seem fine for days or even weeks, only to slowly decline and die off with no clear cause. In cases like this, it's not a reflection of your care or your tank's quality. You can do everything right, meticulously match parameters, provide a stable environment, and offer high-quality food, but if the animals have already been pushed to their physiological limits, they may simply not have the strength to adapt to yet another change. It's a harsh reality in this hobby. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, their past experiences and accumulated stress make long-term survival impossible. This is why sourcing from reputable breeders who raise stock in conditions similar to yours can make such a big difference, and why patience and understanding are so important in this hobby. Unfortunately, there's no foolproof way to spot a bad batch before bringing new shrimp or fish home. Even experienced aquarists can be caught off guard by animals that seem healthy at first but struggle to adapt or thrive. Still, there are several proactive measures you can take to reduce risk and support a successful transition. First is to choose reputable sources. Whenever possible, buy from breeders or stores known for prioritizing strong genetics, ethical breeding practices, and transparency about their stock. Reputable sellers are more likely to provide healthy, well-acclimated shrimp or fish and will often stand behind their livestock with guarantees or helpful advice. Second is to ask about the shrimp or fish's background. Don't hesitate to ask the seller about the water parameters the animals were kept in, including pH, GH, KH, and temperature. Also, find out how long they've been at the store or facility. Shrimp and fish that have been at the retailer longer are often less stressed and have had time to recover from shipping, making them more likely to thrive. Third is to start with a larger group size. If your goal is to breed your new shrimp or fish, start with a larger group to improve your chances of getting a balanced sex ratio. This is especially important for species that are difficult to sex when young or are prone to natural sex ratio skews. A larger group also helps spread out any aggression and creates a more natural social environment. Fourth is to always quarantine new arrivals. No matter how healthy your new shrimp or fish appear, always quarantine them in a separate tank for at least 2 to 4 weeks. This allows you to monitor for disease, parasites, or delayed stress reactions without risking your established aquarium. Quarantine also gives new arrivals a chance to acclimate and recover from the rigors of transport in a low-stress environment. Fifth is to acclimate slowly and carefully. Take your time when introducing new shrimp or fish to your tank. Use drip acclimation or other gradual methods to help them adjust to your water parameters, reducing the shock of transition. If you'd like to learn more about drip acclimation, check out the video in the top right corner. Sixth is to observe feeding behavior. If possible, watch the shrimp or fish during feeding time before you buy them. Healthy, well-adjusted animals should show interest in food and actively forage or eat. If they ignore food or seem lethargic, it could be a sign of underlying stress or health issues, especially if they've just arrived at the store. Seventh is to be patient and observant. Give your new arrivals time to settle in, and keep a close eye on their behavior and health during the first few weeks. Early intervention can make a big difference if problems arise. While you can't eliminate every risk, these steps can greatly improve your odds of success and help you avoid the heartbreak of losing new additions to a bad batch. Remember, even with the best practices, some losses are unavoidable, but being informed and proactive puts you in the best position to succeed. So, if you've ever felt frustrated, confused, or even blamed yourself after losing new shrimp or fish, just know you're not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. Sometimes it's just a bad batch. This hobby is full of learning curves, and sometimes, even when you do everything right, things still go wrong. That's not failure, that's part of the process. What really matters is how you respond, how you keep learning, keep improving, and keep showing up for the animals you care about. Now, have you ever received a bad batch? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to my full shrimp food collection, and if you're looking for a more in-depth guide to creating a thriving community tank with shrimp and fish, check out this video next. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more shrimp keeping tips, guides, and advice. I'm Andy, thanks for watching, and I hope I made shrimp keeping a little easier for you. I'll catch you in the next one.